Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to see a full room here. My name is Alyssa Kroeger. I'm the Housing Program Manager with the City of Pacific Grove. I'm also on the Leadership Council with the Coalition, and I'm super honored and excited to be here with this esteemed panel discussing reflections from residents with lived experience. With that, we do have another mic at the other end of the table if Wes would like to grab that. And we'll go ahead and start off the panel by passing the mic down, and everyone can introduce themselves and their affiliations while we get ready to dive into some questions.
Okay, I guess I'll keep it short. Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, also part of the National Union of Homeless, which is under the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I'm also part of the LEAD committee, which is a Lived-Experience Advisory Directive for the continued care for Monterey and San Diego counties.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rivera. I oversee the Youth Action Board, the Youth for Action.
My name is Heavin, and I do homeless outreach with Access Support Network. I serve on the COC Leadership Council, and I am the chair of the Lived-Experience Advisory.
Hello everyone, my name is Lyvesha Franklin. I'm also known as Queen Tay. I am the co-chair of the Lead Council alongside Tim, and I'm also the CEO and founder of my own organization called Queen's Council. I'm building a Black Birth Network here in Monterey County.
Right.
Wonderful. Let's give it up for our esteemed panelists. Thank you. For those who just walked in, welcome. This is our lived experience panel. We're deeply honored to present an extraordinary panel of impassioned and experienced individuals who have not only traversed the path beside those who grappled with homelessness, but who have themselves weathered its tumultuous storm. Testing. Myself included. Today, we embark on an enlightened journey to unveil the obstacles and opportunities to address homelessness within our current systems, through the lens of those who possess intimate knowledge of the lived experience when lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So, I'd like to just start by getting a sense of who all here is in the room. Just real quickly, with a show of hands, can I see who here has personally known someone who's experienced homelessness? All right. Who here has experienced homelessness themselves? Welcome. Who here is in the homelessness sector? All right, and how about housing? My housers, whoop whoop. Health? All right. And government? Wonderful. Who here serves in a community capacity? All right, and who here participated in their local point in time count? Awesome, and who here is planning to participate in the next point in time count? Let's get all those hands raised, come on. All right. So we'll start the panel off with our first question today, and each panelist will have around 2 or 3 minutes each to respond. So could you share your personal experiences and insights regarding the current barriers and challenges within the system that impact individuals with lived experience of homelessness? What have you encountered that you believe needs immediate attention and improvement? And whoever would like to start, or we can go ahead and start over where the mic is with Wes.
Okay, so I've experienced homelessness. I used to live in my car for about 6 months, and luckily I found people that would take care of me. But that wasn't what I found for a lot of people. More than anything, people need stability and consistency. 4 walls and a roof and a door that locks. That would actually loosen a lot of post-traumatic stress for a lot of people. Just giving people permission to be somewhere, anywhere. At least like some kind of ID card actually is what I'm throwing out there is immunity from sweeps. Some way that we can identify people as harmless, not homeless. And almost everybody is already signed up in CARS, H.O.M.E, and every jurisdiction should respect that. If we're going to work as a partnership, that following the Coalition of Homeless Service Providers and the Leadership Council, those entities are supposed to be the responsible ones, and they're all jurisdictions as well. And for me, we're all here to save lives. Our homeless union, police, fire. Why are we butting heads? Why is there so much attacking happening? I wish I could think of it differently, but I love the support that's given, and I feel really good about the way things are going now, and fruition of making it to where we're valuing people, treating people like people. Hopefully is the direction we're going right now, with being on the continuum of care, getting a vote as far as that. We have gone a long way. And just immunity from sweeps, I think would be a fruition. It's permanently temporary for a while. When shelter in place happened, that was actually our renaissance time. It was amazing because people were allowed to stay where they were at. We got porta potties and dumpsters. We should have running water and electricity is really where it should be. So I love hearing Genevieve say showers and laundry. But really, it's just being able to be consistently where you're at. And just being passed over. How can we pass people over from being accosted by law enforcement? I think it's one of the biggest issues right now. They threw everybody off of the property in public property, and now everybody's along the train tracks, which eliminated the need for, from the city's perspective, porta potties and dumpsters. So, we should raise that level of minimal health and safety standard. Okay, health and safety days is what they call it. They're kicking everybody out of Car Lake right now. They got a grant for $8 million, but they're getting rid of everybody. So are we really here to help, or are we just collecting money? And we're still going to see those people tomorrow. So how do we, everybody is in their own neighborhood, and that's what trips me out. It's like, they have to be close to their family, to their work, to their doctor appointments. And they need to be in their own neighborhood, and that's what we need to not just go like, well, we just need a place. No, it's all places. It's just recognizing that people are too poor for rent. And if we can do that and identify them as harmless, I can see a lot of things improving.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wes. So my name is Rivera. I think if you would need to ask me if I was homeless before, I would answer with the question, which time? I have been homeless multiple times in my life, whether it be housing instability, living in cars, going through couches. I have even made my way, I have gone full circle and have become a social worker over at Dorothy's place. And I think that one of the really big needs that I currently see in the community is the lack of not thinking or care, but lack of resources for our undocumented folks. As a social worker, as someone who has been there, I have multiple times have had to scramble and be like, okay, where can I go? Where can I send you? Oh, I have to send you to a religious organization. Oh, you're not religious and you don't want to go to a religious organization. That is perfectly fine. Let's try to find you something else. Oh, you need a social security for this. You need this, you need that. So I think that for me personally, where I see the need is with our undocumented folks, but also our folks who are homeless as well. So just kind of bringing that up to light for folks so that folks are very well aware of just kind of the way in which we are bringing this conversation forward.
Thank you, sir. So I also have experienced homelessness many different times in my life. The most recent time I was experiencing homelessness was during COVID. And so during COVID, I experienced a breakup with my then girlfriend, which left me out in the streets. I ended up living in my RV. The levels of stress I was experiencing, just looking for a safe spot I could be throughout the day, it was a real struggle. And not knowing exactly, where I was going to be able to sleep at night, it could just be so stressful. That's just part of the struggle. It seems like the stresses just kept piling up so quickly, and I found myself turning to drugs just to be able to cope with these stresses as an easy way out. I felt like, there just wasn't anyone I could turn to for help. When you hit rock bottom, it's nearly impossible to dig yourself out. I had to force myself to have the willpower to stay proactive and get myself out. I remember taking a CARS assessment and getting into the system for housing. Once I was in the system, I constantly worried how long it was going to take to actually get into housing, and to make sure I was just able to even keep my cell phone number active long enough, so that they know where to get a hold of me at. I feel like so much stress and problems could have been avoided had there just been a safe place I could park while waiting for my number to be called. You know, time was never on my side. I am really pushing for cities within our counties to have these sort of sanctioned encampment areas where people that are in the system and simply waiting for housing can feel safe and connected without constantly worrying about getting swept, and where work with service providers can actually be effective. You know, because oftentimes a lot of people that are waiting for housing, they call them sweeps, where they're living in encampments and they get pushed around as service providers. Then, you know, they don't have phones, you know, we don't know how to find them, so then their number gets called. And it leads to chronic homelessness, because then they just have to start the process all over again. So I'm really, you know, there are some effective strategies and stuff that we can replicate out there that other areas are doing that we could also bring here. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, my name is Lyvesha Franklin, and my story is after my mom passed away, I decided to relocate with my 4 children here to California, and I was renting a room from a beautiful mom-like friend. And so when I signed my kids up for school, we qualified for the McKinney Veto Act because I did not have a lease or a bill in my name. And my youngest son, he was diagnosed at a young age with oppositional defiancy disorder due to a frontal lobe abnormality. So I was advocating at the school for my son to receive services like an IEP because I know the benefit of services. And I also know the detriment of not receiving services, which is notably referred to as the school-to-prison pipeline. This is a narrative that I know all too well. I'm the oldest of 5 younger brothers, and all of my brothers went straight down that school-to-prison pipeline because of a lack of mental service support. So I did not want this to be the case for my son, so I advocated heavily, which was met with a lot of resistance. And I have to be honest that anti-Black racism absolutely played a major role in the lack of support that I was receiving. There was only 2 Black families in the school, so my family became absolutely expendable. And one day I came to school to pick my kids up from school, and DHR had been called, and my children were removed from my custody without an investigation for 18 months. In that time, I felt like I was pulled into a tornado, and my entire world exploded, and I was lost in a dark, empty space of total helplessness, not knowing what to do or how to protect myself or my children while already dealing with the loss of my mother. I relied totally on my faith in God, and I learned about the gathering place for women from my therapist. And I had always been familiar with Salvation Army. So I reached out to the Salvation Army, and even though I was on a waiting list, I still stayed very active with that connection. During that time, it was time for my children to be reunited with me, and I was promised a housing voucher for the reunification process, which did not come through, which also anti-Black racism, discrimination, and favoritism contributed to the lack of support that I received, as if they wanted to keep my family destroyed. I felt totally unsupported. However, like I said, it was my faith and my consistency and my hard work and my connections and my relationship building that brought me through that process. And I was able to completely go through the alternative housing program through Salvation Army without support. Other than the caseworker, which she's here today. I don't know if she's in this room, but I saw her today and I love her, and I think the world is a better place because people like her exist. And like all of you here who do the work. However, I was able to be reunified with my children and secure permanent housing without a housing voucher. And I've since, thank you, I've since been a very active leader in the community. At the start of the pandemic, I was one of the very first CHWs to help pilot the Monterey County VITA project. And I stuck with that for 2 years, and now, along with my fiscal sponsor, the Birth Network, which I sit on the board of directors, now they are fiscally sponsoring my own organization to build a birth network to help support Black pregnant mothers during pregnancy, childbirth, and the first 5 years of postpartum. And also, there's some great people in this room who are also working with me to help support and make that a reality here in this community. And I'm just saying, I was not born and raised here, I was new here, so there was a total kind of like disconnect from resources here. But I have encountered some very beautiful people, and I'm building that network so that I can be a support in creating that bridge for other vulnerable, unsupported members of our community.
Let's give it up for case managers out there one more time. Doing the good work. All right, so question 2. Are there any specific initiatives or strategies that you've been involved in or have witnessed that have successfully addressed some of the challenges within this system? Can you provide examples of initiatives that have made a positive impact? Go ahead and take it away, Wes.
Very cool. Some initiatives. I would say that Sherwood Park, we had an encampment there for over a year. That was great. Roberts Lake during the pandemic, Colonel Durham during the pandemic, the safe parking out in Marina. Lapis Road was actually somewhat workable back in 2017. And those folks actually took a long time to actually be placed, 5-7 years, you know, and that when I'm following them through all of those encampments, the same people, you know, spend so much money hurting them and not enough trying to halt that hurt to help the healing. $4 million for spending right, so maybe I'm saying the negative stuff, but you know, all that money could be gone towards sanctioned encampments, which is supposed to be an agenda item maybe next month or something for the city of Salinas, and that's actually already been implemented during shelter in place, where we were providing services. It was so much cheaper and respectful, you know, and people had a much better quality of life. So those are some of the encampments that were the flagpole. You know, I had a 6-month protest at City Hall every night from 6 to 6 when there was no camping allowed. And everyone was, you know, functionally dysfunctional, as almost any family is. But they're peaceful, you know, and that's the thing. We got to realize and recognize that people are just too poor to afford rent. That's the only real difference. Because everyone's still trying to be safe, everyone's still trying to be healthy, you know. We're dysfunctional, we're all dysfunctional. You know, this culture kind of puts it upon us. It's really easy. Just sanction encampments, allowing people to be where they're at, recognizing that they're just too poor to afford rent.
Yeah, so a lot about what you've heard from us is about just COVID in general, and I'll be talking a little bit about COVID as well. During COVID, I worked together with Building Healthy Communities. I was a supporting role when they were giving undocumented families the $500, because what we saw is that a lot of the help that they were receiving at the time, they were going to taxpayers, or they were going to people with social security numbers, and as we know, undocumented folks don't have that. So that's one of the initiatives that I also assisted with. One thing that I would like to talk about right now is the YAB. So the Youth Action Board is actually a board of members full of individuals from the ages of 16 to 28 who have lived experience as well. So we are trying to really have a seat at the table, as you will, in order for our youth to really be represented and well respected in this space as well. So just think about how you're working collaboratively with youth, whether this, if that youth are being given the same seat at the table that everyone else is. I think that would be something that would be really great to see in future initiatives.
So I began serving on the COC Leadership Council 3 years ago as a lived experience member. And I felt like, you know, my voice alone wasn't going to be as effective as multiple voices. So a year ago, with the help of Roxanne, Genevieve, Lyvesha, and Bella, I was able to develop what I named the LEAD, the Lived-Experience Advisory Directive. You know, having the voices of the people experiencing homelessness at the forefront and involved when it comes to these policies and decisions, the funding that is received, and to make sure it is being used effectively is just so important. There needs to be equity and accountability. Besides the LEAD, I feel like other great initiatives that have taken place are some of the hotel conversions that have been going on in Marina, Salinas, King City, as well as a new tiny home project taking place in Pajaro. I think that permanent supportive housing is crucial, as well as involving the voices of us. You know, I did stay at a sanctioned encampment in Colonel Durham during COVID that was really effective. I mean, it was really well run. There was like rules, like the number one rule was no violence, and there wasn't any violence. You know, if you had to, was there any violence, you were kicked out. And it was actually like the crime rate, if you go to like crime maps, I did like a crime map, so there was like little to no crime in that encampment whatsoever. It was well maintained. They brought us porta potties out there. There was like a little shower they even put up, and there was like water, we could connect the hoses, and they even helped out with the big trash thing. So it was just simple things like that went a long way. And they actually used funding that was like, to fund that whole thing was used from interest earned on one of their accounts, the coalition. And at the end of COVID, they just decided that, oh, COVID's over, you guys have to go. And that was kind of, you know, I actually made the news report on it, and you know, because it just didn't seem really fair to me. Like, you guys have to go, but where are you guys gonna go? You know, if you're gonna kick someone out of a place that they're staying, they should have some reasonable means of relocating, you know?
Thanks, Tim. In a meeting I attended not too long ago, the subject of mental health came up, and the question was asked, has anyone ever experienced depression and or anxiety at any point in their lives? And everyone in the meeting admitted to have had some kind of depression or anxious experiences at some point in their life, which I'm sure that's the case for every human. And it was at that time that we all realized that all of humanity is in a constant state of continuum of care as far as mental health is concerned. So, however, when you layer on top of that anti-Black racism and discrimination and the lack of cultural representation in mental health clinicians and resource service providers, then mental health circumstances have the potential to amplify almost uncontrollably. And they contribute to continuing the narrative that seems to allow anti-Black racism and discrimination to be minimized and not rectified. Being intentional about equity would mean being intentional about increasing adequate, effective representation. And cultural humility is necessary for all of humanity. However, cultural competency is educated and compensated representation. The key core base word in the word imagination is image. So let's amplify the images of successful navigations. Residents who, despite the barriers, who have not only secured housing, but are diligently dedicated to paying it forward and contributing to our community. Those are the images that we need to echo into the community and finance and back. Of course, you know, education is necessary, but lived experience is just as equally necessary. And we still need to be educated and compensated, you know, along with our lived experience. It can only add to the value to stop the narrative and reach the core issues and not just wiping off the surface.
Thanks, Lyvesha. I think we touched on this next question a little bit in our first two, but just to hit these points home, building on your experiences and insights, what recommendations or actions would you propose to bridge the gap between those who provide services and make policies and the individuals directly affected by homelessness? How can we work together to create more inclusive and effective solutions? More inclusive and effective solutions for those that didn't hear that in the back.
You know, that actually leads into what I was thinking about too, is I missed one of the encampments was Tents by the Garden. There's a book called Make a Difference by Rita Acosta, and she's our co-president for the Homeless Union. And she brought the first porta potties down to Chinatown. Had organized 40 tents, you know, with 1 or 2 people a tent, 2 rows of 20 with a garbage can in between. This was when, you know, 2011, 2012, when there was hardly anybody around in Chinatown. But, you know, they were just respecting people, I suppose, for their own path of growth. Because, I mean, they were in a vacant lot, they weren't on the sidewalk, you know, so safety. I mean, they even had a padlock and somebody be in charge of the bathroom. You know, there's so much growth that happens on a perpetual basis, and then they have to start over. You know, every time there's a sweep, you lose everything, which is going to make it harder to function and continue that next day. I don't think it's that hard. We're just poor. That's all it is. And how do you I mean, that's the whole point of discrimination, isn't it? Colonization, manifest destiny. If you ain't got money, then you don't belong here. And that's a hard fact that we need to change. That's a policy that needs to change. It's not about a revenue stream. It's about a relationship if you're going to be in public service.
Yeah, so when it comes to my personal experience, when I think back on it, I think that we just didn't think, my parents, just to open up to the room, are undocumented. So when it comes to homelessness and undocumented spaces, it's really hard to seek help, right? Because there's always that fear of being deported or being put somewhere else. Or it's essentially very similar to homelessness, where they pick you up, they take everything away from you, and they throw you back. So I really think that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We'll swing back around to Soul.
So, I think that we as a people need to treat each other as people with the same amount of dignity and respect. We really need to remember to have compassion and understanding that people that are experiencing homelessness come from all walks of life. Everyone has their own unique story. You never know when it could happen to you someday. If we can get together as a people, as a community, and just be willing to help the next person that is struggling, we need to do that. We need to do what we can to build each other up and not just kick people while they're down. I really feel like we are making some great headway in Monterey and San Benito County and are finally actually headed in the right direction with the work that's being done and just the inclusion of people with lived experience in this county, and I know that a lot of policymakers are listening. You know, that's a good thing. You know, they're finally making some headway and some progress towards the right direction. So I'm excited about that.
Right. Well, thanks, Sam. I wanted to add, I think personally, with my experience, of course, now trust me, I'm still struggling. I'm still poor. However, I know there's people in worse situations than me. And so what I'm doing with the knowledge that I have is being a bridge to bridge that gap. But what I think that more of the community can do is to support. I'm grateful that I've been receiving a lot of positive support from the community. So I know that's working in my favor. But what I can advise the community to do is when you see someone trying to pick themselves up or trying to create opportunities to build a bridge or to help underserved communities, just support them.
Thanks, Lyvesha. And Sol, did you want to circle back? I have some follow-up questions for you as well.
Oh, yes. So the Youth Action Board, let's talk a little bit about the Youth Action Board. So lived experience youth, right? And they're compensated for their time. And I think that we really need to support our youth because they are the next step, right? They're the next the next network that we can go into. And I think that supporting youth is one of the most important things. Incentivize them, inspire them, work with them. I think that's one of the, and just like Lyvesha said, support people who you know are struggling. Because trust me, the crisis these days, our young folk are struggling. I'm sure you all are too.
Thanks, Sol. And this is for anyone, kind of off-the-cuff question, whoever might feel called to respond. I was wondering if the panel here had some thoughts on what addressing homelessness for our undocumented community looks like. Sol raised some really salient points around the reality of fear of retaliation, lack of access to resources and visibility. And I wonder if anyone here on the panel might have some thoughts around those lines that they'd like to lift up.
Yeah, of course. So I can talk a little bit about undocumented folks here in the Monterey County. So just to give some perspective, my parents have moved around. So we follow the crop, we follow the seasons, and we decide where we want to go that season. It's really hard, right? It's really hard because you have people that are moving, that are picking their things up and going from community. Like Lyvesha said, she was just coming into Monterey County and she didn't know where to go. And a lot of our folks are in similar boats. So when you bring in fear of retaliation, fear of deportation, and you bring in the fear of just exposing yourself in that way, and also the limitations at which services are able to provide for you, because a lot of services don't provide to undocumented folks, it creates this cesspool of difficulty in accessing resources. So I'm gonna be honest with you all, as someone who has undocumented parents, and as parents who are struggling, we still don't know where to go for help, because there's not much that can be done for us. And I think that is a really big gap that is in this continuum of care personally, when it comes to undocumented folks. But I will say that there are a multitude of organizations like the United Homeworkers Foundation, Really Healthy Communities, especially in this area, and our, especially like MIPA, our East Alisal folks, they're definitely helping to bridge that gap and bringing direct resources into farm worker and undocumented hands.
Well said. Anyone else like to add to that on the panel here? All right. Well, we have some rapid fire questions lined up for you all, but before we get there, we thought we'd go ahead and open it up to the room and take a few questions if anyone has something for the panelists here. Show of hands, yes.
I wanted to know what are some of the what are the plans to implement this, what the gentleman was talking about, some of the initiatives. Can you tell us about what those are?
So right now, like I said, a year ago, I developed the Lived-Experience Advisory Directive, and so it's been in motion for a year now, and we're trying to get to 15 members, and right now we have 12 members. So we're slowly filling that up. We meet every month, and we are setting our goals and trying to get a direction. And like so far, like we've helped like implementing the governance charter for the coalition. We've been involved in that. We're trying to set up a grievance committee where people that have grievances can have a space to come to, and we could present that to some of these policymakers. We're just really like the goal of the lead is to help bridge the gaps between the people being affected by homelessness and the service providers that are servicing them. We want to make sure there's some effectiveness there, and that the voices for the voiceless. There's a lot of people with homelessness that often go unheard. Let's face it, like it's hard to come to these rooms and have a voice. I mean, I know as hard as it is for me to come here and do it, I can only imagine some of these other people that are really still in the struggle. I mean, and so that's the initiative that I'll recommend that answer.
I just have a comment, and I'm going to put it out there, and maybe someone will agree with me, but I feel like if you're going to invite those that are unhoused to the table, you need to speak their language. And I didn't hear that language this morning. And that was my disappointment. That to understand policy, we have to, before understanding the policy, we have to understand what we're dealing with here, especially here in Monterey County, and those that it affects. So when we invite them to the table, we need to speak to a language that they understand. And I don't think that was met this morning. Thank you for explaining and sharing your stories with us. It's beautiful to hear and what you, all three of you have overcome. Thank you. But that was my point to the conversation.
Yeah, to add to what Tim was saying, he said the bridge between the community and the service providers, but also another bridge between the service providers and the local constituents who are making the policy decisions. So there's two bridges that the lived experience will be bridging. And this is a new directive, so we're just seeing what we can do. We kind of like pushing walls and pushing ceilings just to see how far we can go with this. It's new. So. But I did want to include that bridge too, because having the bridge to the policymakers and the service providers is what keeps, what breaks the cycle. Because I've seen a lot of service providers be burned out because they're doing a lot of work and it doesn't match with the policy. Or like service providers are working with residents and then sweeps come and now you lose them and you're not unable to stay consistent with the case management. Okay, sorry, it's a lightning question. But yeah, that bridge is also important too, so I just wanted to highlight that as well, just to piggyback on that.
All right, and just for the good of the group, Tim or anyone else on this panel, could you share with us what folks can do if they're interested in getting involved with the Lived-Experience Advisory Directive?
So if anyone is interested in joining the Lived-Experience Advisory Directive, because I understand where you're coming from, and my voice, that's what I'm saying, my voice alone is just one voice. And that's why it's so important to include other voices with lived experiences, because my story might not resonate with you, or might not resonate with everyone, so that there's power in numbers. And so if anyone's interested and they have lived experience of homelessness, they could go to chsp.org/lead.
Can you say that again?
chsp.org/lead. And we really are we're trying to create a diverse group within the lead and try to pretty much like cover all aspects of, that we could see in the different homeless areas, different regions and everything, have equity.
Awesome. And just to piggyback off of that, Sol, would you be able to share with us a little bit about the process to engage with the YAB?
Yes, so if you are of the ages between 16 and 28 and you have lived experience, you can come up to me, around, or you can go over to the CHSP website as well and sign up to be a YAB member. So YAB members, I try to make the group as fun, as engaging as I can, you know what I mean, making a difference, making a real positive, and trying to really make it into a core group of members where we are able to not only be ourselves, but also make policy.
Thank you, Sol. And the tone of these questions may lead you to believe that we're heading towards the end of our panel, but stay with us. We have a few more minutes still, and more time for 1 to 2 more questions if anyone out there in the audience would like to ask. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, let's go for it.
And this question goes for Tim. On your guys' advisory, do we have anybody representing San Benito County, or is that just all Monterey County members?
We are currently looking for a representative in Hollister, San Benito County.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you know anyone.
You meet by Zoom.
Yeah, meetings are once a month, and also by Zoom, and there's also like transportation help and stuff like that too. So definitely need someone from San Benito County.
Awesome. Any other questions out there in the audience? Yes.
Other than you know, having been homeless, is there any other criteria to being on the leave? Just having had experience, life experience?
That's pretty much the main.
Well,
Yeah,
then I
that's a
guess I'll
qualification.
qualify. Me too, sister. I qualify, you got a new member. I mean, okay.
Yeah, because you know, that's a minimal qualification, but you know, what's your real motivation, what's your intention, what expertise can you help with, you know, like administrative or data collecting, or you know, yeah.
I could feed you 40 years of food service. Not over Zoom, but we'll figure it out.
And there is an interview process, so we do the interview and then you get voted on. So,
It's always new. Right.
All right. One last question. We have a few more minutes. Anyone out there with something burning in their back pocket for the good of the group? All right. So we'll go ahead and head into our lightning round. So if we go ahead and go through the panel, 2 questions. Let me find them. Here we are. What is one thing you hope the audience takes away from this panel today?
I've got a never-ending message, and it's stop the sweeps. People need immunity from sweeps. People need permission. That's actually the cheapest thing you can do as a jurisdiction. Give permission for people to be somewhere, anywhere. If you don't like that place, open up a place. But they deserve to be somewhere. We have inalienable constitutional rights, and there's no way you can avoid that just because of finances.
I think that the one thing that I would take away, that I hope you all take away just from my personal experiences, is to look into, you know, different resources that undocumented folks could have. Also, support your local YAB, your Youth Action Board, and your youth. I know Epicenter's here. I mean, shout out to them over there. I see you guys. But just making sure that your youth engagement is authentic and that it comes from, you know, just making sure that it really does come from the heart. And if you have any youth, please don't worry. We're always looking for newer members. We have some cool projects coming your way.
So just remember that just because someone is homeless, they're still people. They're still human. So try to have some understanding, have some compassion, and let's collaborate and work together. It's not an easy task, but it is possible. It's time for us to come together as people and put NIMBYism aside.
My thing that I would hope that everyone would take away is the importance of trauma-informed care and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
All right, and for the good of the group, where do we go from here?
Well, it does seem like we got some work ahead of us, but we've laid down a little bit of foundation. I think the governance committee with the leadership council and continuing care is our point of you know, congruence between policy and practice. And it does seem like we're bridging some of that. So let's get going with the continuing care, that governance grievance, and then maybe we can even eliminate that just by having safe, organized spaces. You know, if it's not a blanket of trash, you should pass them over. There shouldn't be a need for police contact. Those are the kind of directions I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think community. Where do we go from here? Look into your community and look within yourself to see if you have the capacity to continue to support your local youth that are fighting to end homelessness.
So just like I said, remember people's lives matter, homeless lives matter, and let's keep moving forward and work towards empowering those that are less fortunate and still struggling. You know, I think empowerment is huge, so just remember this, empower.
Cultural competency is representation. Cultural humility is possible, but cultural competency is representation. So I hear a lot of people say, I'm culturally competent. It's impossible. That's representation.
you. What an enlightening journey we've had here today, exploring this diverse experience of homelessness. As we wrap up, I encourage you all to take these insights and put them into action. Two really simple ways to do that. One, you can consider volunteering and participating in your next point in time count. It's a meaningful opportunity to engage with the community, collecting much needed data and tracking and measuring progress to end homelessness. Another really simple way is just to commit to engaging in conversation with friends and family around the dinner table, at work, wherever you may be, and talking about the realities of homelessness, breaking down misconceptions, humanizing statistics, and challenging biased stories. Our combined efforts can create a brighter, equitable, and more compassionate future. So thank you all for being here, being a part of this conversation, and embracing the power of change in our communities. Together we can choose to end homelessness. Thank you all. Give everyone a round of applause.